You're watching KUTV 2 News at 5.
Tuning in today, a terrible tragedy for a tight-knit group of skydivers and friends.
The group's plane disappears from radar and drops into the Great Salt Lake. 9 people are dead. The pilot was trying to land at a small airport near the town of Urda. Fields Mosley is live in Sky 2 at the lake this afternoon. And Fields, when exactly did this trip begin?
Well, the group left for Mesquite, Nevada to enjoy a weekend of skydiving. That was Friday morning. Now, they were on their way back yesterday. Should have landed around 5:30. We're going to take a picture now from Sky 2, and you can see this area of the lake. That is where the plane went down. And when they were still on their way back, or were still supposed to be back, and they weren't back yet, a relative of someone on that plane, well, they called the Salt Lake Airport. By mid-morning, emergency workers found the Beach 65 in 5 feet of water. You can see in these pictures from Sky 2, part of the fuselage is just below the surface, and there is part of the landing gear. But at 11:30 Sunday, when rescue crews got the call, they had little idea where to start looking. Radar showed the plane went down in the lake. Rescue workers couldn't find it in the darkness, but discovered the 7 bodies near the shore. 2 of them were farther out.
Right now we've found 9 bodies that were on the plane.
By first light, there still wasn't a sign of the plane.
It's our feeling that we're not looking for, a whole plane out there. It's going to be in pieces.
But the signs of former lives were spread across the beach. Parachutes, duffel bags, and helmets.
Found parachutes and sleeping bags and duffel bags and helmets and pilot's logbook. And so we just set them up on the shore.
What they're trying to do now is get a barge with a crane to lift the pieces of the airplane, and hopefully they'll be able to do that within a day or 2.
Well, the Sheriff's Department picked up all those things scattered along the beach that you can see there, and it will eventually get those back to the families. As we said, 9 people died in this crash, and we have a list of the victims. The pilot was John Cashmen, Lisa Ellis, Mike Hurren, Gayle Hurren, Nathan Hall, Denise Stott, Charles Wilson, and Merriah Hutson. Shauna?
Well, Fields, with all those people involved, why did it take a relative to get the search underway?
I can't quite hear you, Shauna, but the pilot, I believe you asked me why the relative have to call to get a search underway. Well, the pilot didn't file a flight plan, and he's not required to file a flight plan, but that is why the tower was not specifically watching this flight. Shauna?
All right, Fields, thanks so much. The NTSB is in charge of recovering the plane. It will continue its investigation after getting it out of the lake.
Well, obviously a very tough day for family and friends of the 9 who were killed in that crash. Dan Rascombe spoke with some of the family members today. He joins us now in the studio. And Dan, a lot of people affected by this crash today.
Oh, there's no question about it, Mark. A real tragedy here. All 9 of the skydivers are from around here, and most of them have been jumping for many years. So this tragic crash has impacted dozens of people across the valley.
This is a group of people who were returning home doing something that they loved with a passion.
9 master skydivers, 3 of them couples, all taken at once.
I'm sure we'll be in shock for a while.
Wally is a brother to Lisa Ellis, a 34-year-old wife and mother of 2 stepchildren and a teacher at Rosecrest Elementary.
Just cared about everybody. Just her kids, just a school teacher, her family. Just pretty selfless. Just loved life.
Chuck was extremely talented.
Chuck Wilson was 31 years old, a senior at the U majoring in photography and graphic arts.
He's a great brother. He's the closest one to me in age, and so he was in the house longest when I was young.
And the love of his life was 25-year-old Merriah Hutson, who was also on the plane. The skydiving trip to Nevada was her birthday present.
Merriah was a beautiful girl, both inwardly and outwardly. You just can't believe something happens that close to home.
There was a lot of talent on that airplane.
Ken Smith, a skydiver himself, has just lost 9 close friends.
This was not a skydiving accident. This was an accident. This was an accident, pure and simple.
An accident that's affected dozens of lives.
Well, we just know that he's at peace, that he's not completely gone.
Now the other skydivers are identified as 51-year-old Mike Hurren and his wife Gayle. They are both owners of that skydiving company. 41-year-old John Cashmen, 29-year-old Nathan Hall, and his wife Denise. and 24-year-old Jay Johnson. As we mentioned, real tragedy here, a lot of friends and family involved here.
Sure is, Dan. Well, what time did most of these families find out about the accident?
Well, they actually heard about it just before midnight, but Ken Smith says he reported the plane missing to authorities at about 5:45 last night when the team didn't arrive home. So once it was reported, it took about 6 hours before they tracked the plane down.
Seems like they have a lot of good memories of their friends, Dan. Thanks a lot. Also, the people that Dan talked to mentioned that the skydivers died doing what they love to do.
A man loses his wife and many friends when 9 skydiving buddies venture out of state for a weekend of fun in the skies above Nevada, as seen in this home video taken on their last day alive. It was on the flight home that their trip took a very tragic turn. Good evening. Our top story at 6, the death of 9 Utahns in a plane crash on the Great Salt Lake. The events surrounding the recovery today and just who these victims were.
These 9 people were skydivers returning home from a trip to Mesquite, Nevada. Now, it's estimated that their Beechcraft King twin-engine plane spiraled into the south arm of the lake in Tooele County. That's about 1.5 miles north of the Tooele exit off I-80. This plane crashed around 5:30 last night, but it wasn't discovered missing and located until several hours later. This plane was approaching the Tooele Valley Airport from the north when something went wrong. Rescue crews worked throughout the night to recover the bodies. And today, crews had the grim task of cleaning up the crash site and recovering personal items. News 4 Utah's Sean Conroy has been covering this story for us today and the people making it since early this morning. He joins us live tonight from the edge of the Great Salt Lake. Sean?
Well, Scott, we were at this dock waiting for exhausted, emotionally and physically exhausted searchers to come back. I have to tell you, honestly, it was hard to watch that. You can imagine what it's like to be them, having to deal with this death and tragedy that they experienced this morning. More than just debris washed up on the shores of the Great Salt Lake. Items surfaced that made this whole crash incredibly personal.
It makes you stop and think.
Bob Rossell has dealt with death patrolling the lake, but what he saw in the early morning darkness, he couldn't have been prepared to see.
I won't say you get used to it, because you never get used to it, but you know what you have to do and you just do it.
A life flight pilot discovered a body floating in the water. Brian Hall found another and saw the other 7 lying on the shores.
I've seen a few like it before. You don't really get dead to it. You just adapt the best way you can, try and get your job done, maybe stop and think about it later.
Later, picking up personal reminders.
Bags, helmets, articles of clothing and that sort of thing.
And finding the plane in parts couldn't stop searchers from thinking about what happened.
It's tough on the man.
But perhaps tougher that it didn't hurt more than it did.
Unfortunately, I'm getting a little better at handling that, but it's sure an awful thing. That's a lot of people in a real fast time period to have to die that way.
That way was quickly. No time to put on parachutes and no distress message to the tower. And all of it, according to radar evidence, just 5 miles from home.
It showed that the plane had started a left-hand turn and then went into some kind of a spiral at that point in time. Then it went off their radar screen.
Into the lake and into the lives of the people who get paid to not make it personal, but can't help but let that happen.
You can't really let it get to you immediately. You can feel for it and you can deal with it, but right now there's a job to do. We need to get them in, find their belongings, try and get information to their friends and family, and get our job done.
Now, that job wrapped up this afternoon after a long, cold, dark night of searching. We're told the pilot never filed a flight plan, nor did he talk to the tower in Salt Lake. That meant all they had was that little blip that disappeared on the radar, according to that recording that they took back at the tower. That's all they had to go on to find the wreckage and the victims.
Sean, is there any word at all what may have caused this crash?
Well, investigators with the FAA and the NTSB were here all day. They will be here all day tomorrow when they pull the wreckage out. They'll examine that wreckage, look over the radar records, do some investigations to figure out what happened. But as always in the winter, it's likely weather played a big part in this.
Okay. Thank you, Sean.
They came from all walks of life, teachers, business owners, and students. News 4 Utah's Chris Jones is here to give us a glimpse of these people who died on that plane.
Well, they were all friends. They knew each other for a very long time. All of these folks were a tight-knit group of friends for years. The victims range in age from the very youngest, Jay Johnson, to the oldest, Mike Hurren. He was one of the co-owners of Skydive Salt Lake. This is video of Lisa Ellis. This was her first dive ever. This was 6 years ago. She was a teacher at Rosecrest Elementary, and she was married for 5 years. Her husband says she touched everyone she ever met.
I want people to know that know her, that if you had the opportunity for Lisa Ellis to touch your life, then you're a better person for work today. I will miss her. God bless her.
Now, of course, everybody on that plane had a story. The Hurrens, for example, were the longtime owners of Skydive Salt Lake. John Cashmen was their pilot for many years. Jay Johnson just got his degree and had spent the last 8 months traveling across Europe. Nathan Hall was a software company owner. He was recently engaged to another skydive victim on that plane, Denise Stott. So a lot of stories, all of them tragic.
Terrible tragedy, and our hearts go out to all of those people.
Definitely.
Thanks, Chris.
Sure.
You're watching KUTV 2 News at 10.
9 people are dead after a small plane crashes into the Great Salt Lake. As Sky 2 located the wreckage, and you can see how hard it was to spot under the surface of the lake. Good evening, everybody. The NTSB is now investigating the crash that killed everybody on board.
The plane was returning from a skydiving trip in Mesquite. It was supposed to land at the Tooele Airport. It dropped off radar about 5:30 yesterday afternoon, but no one realized it had crashed until hours later when the plane was reported missing by a relative of a passenger. Radar showed the plane spiraled out of control before going into the lake. Around 1 this morning, the bodies of all 9 people were found not far from shore. At first light, more signs of the crash started turning up. Hunters came upon personal belongings that were washing up on the beach.
And we found parachutes and sleeping bags and duffel bags and helmets and pilot's logbook, and so we just set them up on the shore.
Well, that wreckage is still in the lake tonight. Investigators hope to start removing it sometime tomorrow.
A difficult day for family and friends of the victims. Dan Rascone talked with some of them today. And Dan, when did the families learn about the tragedy?
Well, Michelle, one family member first reported the missing plane just after 5:30 yesterday afternoon. The other family members then learned of the search later that night. And then just after 2 o'clock this morning is when they got that dreaded phone call that the plane and the bodies had been found.
This is a group of people who were returning home doing something that they loved with a passion.
9 master skydivers, 3 of them couples, all taken at once.
I'm sure we'll be in shock for a while.
Wally is a brother to Lisa Ellis, a 34-year-old wife and mother of 2 stepchildren and a teacher at Rosecrest Elementary.
Just cared about everybody. Just her kids, just a school teacher, her family. Just pretty selfless. Just loved life.
Chuck was extremely talented.
Chuck Wilson was 31 years old, a senior at the U, majoring in photography and graphic arts.
He's a great brother. He's a great person. He's very dedicated to whatever his goal happens to be.
And the love of his life was 25-year-old Merriah Hutson, who was also on the plane. The skydiving trip to Nevada was her birthday present.
Merriah was a beautiful girl, both inwardly and outwardly. You just can't believe something happens that close to home.
There was a lot of talent on that airplane.
Ken Smith, a skydiver himself, has just lost 9 close friends.
This was not a skydiving accident. This was an accident. This was an accident, pure and simple.
An accident that's affected dozens of lives.
Well, we just know that he's at peace, that he's not completely gone.
Now, besides Lisa, Chuck, and Merriah, the other skydivers include the pilot, 41-year-old John Cashmen, 51-year-old Mike Hurren and his wife Gayle, 29-year-old Nathan Hall and his wife Denise, and 24-year-old Jay Johnson. And it's said that these skydivers had about 25,000 jumps combined. So very experienced skydivers we're talking about
And a
here.
very long night during that
Yes.
search for the families.
No question about it. Very long night. From the time the plane came up missing till they identified the bodies was about 7 hours or so. So a very difficult and long wait for the families waiting for that phone call.
Okay, Dan, thank you. Mike and Gayle Hurren were the owners of Skydiver Salt Lake.
All right, Stacy, thank you. The bodies of 9 people were pulled from the cold water of the Great Salt Lake early this morning after their twin-engine plane mysteriously crashed late last night. The victims were skydivers on their way back to Salt Lake City from a weekend trip to Mesquite, Nevada. The plane was supposed to land in Tooele at 5:30 last night, but when it didn't show up, family members called authorities. A tape of radar transmission shows a plane disappearing from the screen, apparently spiraling into the lake about 5 miles west of the South Shore Marina. News specialist Debbie Dujanovic tells us more.
We found parachutes, sleeping bags, duffel bags, helmets. It's a jumpsuit. It's sad. It is really sad, and how it's strung out all along the shore here.
Randy Eggett and his buddies went for a day of duck hunting. At first light, they found evidence of a tragedy.
Before even the sun came up, I found this black bag, and I opened it up, and it was the pilot's log.
Also in this piece of luggage is some information on skydiving.
The debris washed up overnight. By mid-morning, rescue teams spotted the plane wreckage in the lake in shallow water. Here you can see the wheel of the plane in the water. Rescuers spent the night removing all 9 bodies. Now it's time to get the plane to shore so federal officials can figure out a cause for the crash. It is an eerie feeling. As far as the eye can see along the shore of the Great Salt Lake, there are personal belongings, from sleeping bags to daytimers to jumpsuits. The victims were avid skydivers who'd gotten out of town to enjoy some jumps in the Nevada sun.
It's a tragedy. I hate seeing it. It's sad that those 9 people died.
The duck hunters pulled what they could to shore.
Here's a shoe right here that we haven't kicked out yet.
So authorities can give the belongings back to the families of the 9 people killed on the Great Salt Lake. Debbie Dujanovic, Eyewitness News.
Now, according to the Tooele County Sheriff, the pilot of that aircraft did not file a flight plan for the return trip to Salt Lake, and that's why the Salt Lake Airport didn't know the plane had even gone down at 5:30. Search and rescue teams weren't contacted until late last night and arrived on the scene for the first time at 11:30 p.m.
Now more about the victims of this tragedy. The 9 are identified as pilot John T. Cashmen, passengers Lisa Ellis, Mike Hurren, Gayle Hurren, Nathan Hall, Denise Stott, Charles Wilson, Merriah Hutson, and Jay Johnson. They were members of an experienced skydiving team with a total of about 25,000 jumps among them. The pilot was also very experienced. News specialist Jill Atwood joins us now with more.
Well, Deanie, not surprisingly, word has traveled very fast through the skydiving community. Skydivers are a very close-knit group with an extreme passion for this sport. Now, 34-year-old Lisa Ellis was one of last night's victims. Today, her family is choosing to dwell on the fact that she spent her last couple days doing what she loved. She and 8 other close friends were returning from Mesquite, where they enjoyed a series of jumps over the weekend. This group from Skydive Salt Lake wasn't performing or anything like that. They were just there for fun. It's very common for divers from the valley to go there for the weekend, especially during the winter. Now, Lisa's husband, Brett, wants her to be remembered for 3 things: her passion for her family, for her children — Lisa was an elementary school teacher — and of course her love of skydiving. Mr. Ellis never dreamed his best friend would be taken from him in this way.
I never worried about her because I know the kind of person that she is. She's very safe, she's very conscious, and she's very smart. So I never really worried about her. I worried about other things. I never thought about a plane crash.
Now, Lisa and the others, like we said, were very experienced. Some of them were actually skydiving instructors. 2 of the victims actually owned and operated Skydive Salt Lake. Their names were Mike and Gayle Hurren. As to how this plane went down, of course, no official cause yet. A lot of speculation. We all know the weather was bad last night. That may have contributed to this crash. But right now, a lot of that plane is still behind me in the Salt Lake. And until investigators can get in there and get that plane out, we just won't have any more answers. Reporting live at the Great Salt Lake, I'm Jill Atwood. Dick and Deanie, I'll send it back to you.
You're watching KSL 5. This is Eyewitness News at 10.
As day broke today, evidence of a tragedy came into view. Parts of an airplane sitting in shallow water, along with the belongings of 9 passengers who died in the crash, were washing ashore. Good evening, I'm Dick Norris.
And I'm Nadine Wimmer. Investigators tonight are trying to figure out why the plane crashed. It was carrying members of a group of Utah from skydivers. They were returning from Mesquite, Nevada, and the plane mysteriously dropped off the radar and apparently spiraled into the Great Salt Lake near the South Shore Marina.
Oh, we found parachutes, sleeping bags, duffel bags, helmets. It's a jumpsuit. It's sad. It is really sad, and how it's strung out all along the shore here.
Duck hunters found personal belongings of the 9 passengers washing to shore, everything from sleeping bags to daytimers.
Before even the sun came up, I found this black bag, and I opened it up, and it was the pilot's log.
So in this piece of luggage is some information on skydiving.
By mid-morning, rescue teams could see the wreckage in 5 feet of water. Even the wheel of the plane floated to surface. The victims were avid skydivers. They'd spent the weekend enjoying jumps in the Nevada sun. The hunters retrieved what they could so the belongings could be returned to the victims' families.
Here's a shoe right here that we haven't kicked out yet.
It's a tragedy. I hate seeing it. It's sad that those 9 people died.
The 9 people killed in the plane crash include the pilot, John T. Cashmen, and passengers Lisa Ellis, Mike and Gayle Hurren, Nathan Hall, Denise Stott, Charles Wilson, and Merriah Hutson. Dick?
Word of the plane crash traveled quickly through the skydiving community. Some family members tonight are taking comfort in the fact their loved ones spent the last couple of days doing what they loved. News specialist Jill Atwood has more on this aspect of the story.
With extreme sports come extreme bonds. The group from Skydive Salt Lake was no exception.
That's what she was happiest doing. She loved the freedom of skydiving. She loved her camaraderie with all her skydiving buddies.
It's something that when you get involved in the sport, it becomes a part of you so much that outside of your family and work, you probably spend as much time out there at the drop zone.
Word of the crash has devastated the skydiving community. They say the industry has lost 9 good people, 9 pros with both a passion and a respect for the sport.
I never worried about her because I know the kind of person that she is. She's very safe, she's very conscious, and she's very smart. So I never really worried about her. I worried about other things. I never thought about a plane crash.
Brett Ellis lost his wife Lisa in the crash, and while he's proud of her skydiving accomplishments, he wants her remembered for her true passions, teaching and children. At one time, she was awarded the Golden Apple Award for Teacher of the Year.
She gave her emotions, she gave her heart, her soul, some of our finances to, buying things for those kids. But that's what she did. She touched these kids' lives. She touched so many people's lives.
Tonight, the cause of the crash is still a mystery, although there has been some speculation that it was weather-related. Tomorrow, investigators should be able to get the remains of that plane out of the Great Salt Lake and then start digging from there. Alongside the Great Salt Lake, I'm Jill Atwood, Eyewitness News.
Radar tape recordings indicate the plane was banking for a final turn when it spiraled into the water. There was no distress signal.
And life. She was one of 9 people who died when their plane crashed in the Great Salt Lake after a weekend of skydiving. That's our top story tonight. Good evening. I'm Scott Swan. Randall has the night off.
All 9 victims were skydivers and were returning home from an outing in Mesquite, Nevada, when just 5 miles from home, something went wrong. Searchers were alerted late last night that the plane was missing. News 4 Utah, Sean Conroy has more.
By air, ground, and by water, search and rescue teams scoured the darkness for signs of survivors. But they quickly knew they weren't going to deliver people to safety. Instead, deliver bodies to relatives.
It was tough. When we got in, the biggest problem was coming up with all the bodies.
But the search wouldn't take long. 7 bodies lied on the shore, 2 others not far from it in the water.
They disappeared approximately 5:30, but nobody knew.
That's because the pilot never filed a flight plan for the trip from Mesquite to Tooele. Only friends and relatives knew when to expect their loved ones. And when they didn't return, they sounded their worries.
I filled them up Friday morning when they left.
Craig Rideout sent the fun seekers on their way from the Tooele airport, never to see them return.
They flew all the time. There was no inexperience involved. I think the weather had a lot to do with it.
Because of snowy conditions, the pilot steered the twin-engine plane over the lake to pick up instrumental directions. That's where radar tapes show it disappeared.
It showed that the plane had taken it, started a left-hand turn,
and they went into some kind of a spiral at that point in time. Then it went off their radar screen.
The morning after, searchers found the plane in 3 to 4 pieces under 5 feet of water.
Bags, helmets, articles of clothing, and that sort of thing.
While personal belongings littered the beach. All reminders to searchers that this was far more than a routine day on the job.
It's sure an awful thing. That's a lot of people in a real fast time period to have to die that way.
The FAA and the NTSB are on the scene trying to piece together exactly what happened. But whatever happened, it happened quickly. The skydivers had no chance to put on their parachutes and never signaled that they were in distress. 9 people died in the plane crash. The victims are 41-year-old John Cashmen, the pilot, 51-year-old Mike Hurren, 45-year-old Gayle Hurren, the owners of Skydive Salt Lake, 29-year-old Nathan Hall, 29-year-old Denise Stott, 31-year-old Charles Wilson, 25-year-old Merriah Hutson, 24-year-old Jay Johnson, and 34-year-old Lisa Ellis.
Lisa Ellis was a third-grade teacher at Rosecrest Elementary School. She'd been skydiving for almost 5 years. Today's News 4 Utah's Chris Jones spoke with her family. Chris?
Well, Brett Ellis says his wife loved the outdoors, especially skydiving. He even bought her first lesson as a birthday gift, but he says his wife was much more than a skydiver.
A gift from my husband for my birthday?
In 1996, Lisa Ellis buckled on a hobby that became a passion. But for Brett Ellis, this woman was his passion, soaring not only through the sky, but through his life.
A wonderful mate and a wonderful wife to me. She was my life, and she was my soul. And if you knew her, then she touched your soul too.
Her hobby took her all over the country. This picture was taken months ago, ironically, right over the shoreline where that plane filled with 9 people went down last night.
This was our last year, Lake Powell.
Married for 5 years, today Ellis wears her wedding ring around his neck. He said goodbye to his wife for the last time Friday as she boarded the small twin-engine plane for a weekend skydive in Mesquite, Nevada.
She told me that she loved me when she was getting on the airplane, and she said, "I'll see you at around 5 o'clock. And I said, "I love you too, and I'll look forward to seeing you."
But as 5 passed to 6, then to 7, Ellis began to feel something was wrong. And now he knows he is not the only one who the third-grade teacher touched.
This is what she lived for, is educating these children. That was what her compassion was. She loved it, and they loved her so much. This is more than a loss for me and my family. This is a loss for a lot of families.
Ellis says she lifted his life and all of those around her.
But if you had the opportunity for Lisa Ellis to touch your life, then you're a better person for it today. I will miss her. God bless her.
Now, Ellis is one of 12 children. One of her brothers is a detective with the Utah County Sheriff's Office, and he told me today that he always kind of wondered that if he would be the one who would go early, maybe in an accident or some sort of problem, but he says he never would have figured it would have been his baby sister, a school teacher, a third-grade school teacher.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Recapping our top story now, 9 people are killed in a plane crash in the Great Salt Lake. They were returning home from a skydiving trip in Nevada. At 6 o'clock tonight, we'll talk with the people involved in the recovery effort.
Great Salt Lake killing all 9 people on board. Tonight, family of the victims talk about their terrible loss.
Evans, a twin-engine plane carrying 9 members of a skydiving club plunged into the Great Salt Lake last night. It appears it took a hard dive into the water about 6 miles west of the Great Salt Lake Marina. The man at the controls is described as a very experienced pilot, but as Fox 13's Sandy Reescraft reports, something went terribly wrong as he tried to make his way to the Tooele airport.
By midday, the task of recovering personal belongings had begun. The victims' shoes, sleeping bags, all washed ashore when the plane went down. Down in what investigators believe may have been a very violent dive.
When they did their plot on I guess their radar specs, it showed that the plane had started a left-hand turn and they went into some kind of a spiral at that point in time. Then it went off their radar screen.
It went off the radar screen and into the Great Salt Lake, killing all 9 on board. Divers found the plane in 5 feet of water, 1/2 mile offshore. 7 bodies washed in. 2 others were recovered from the icy water.
The very fact that the bodies were not cut up indicates to us that the aircraft probably disintegrated, not totally, but the people weren't cut up enough to indicate that the structure of the aircraft was a lot intact.
Investigators say the plane never signaled for help. The pilot did not file a flight plan. Recovering the plane from the Great Salt Lake won't be easy. They'll bring a barge in over the next couple of days to lift the wreckage out.
In the past, I know that we've had planes that have gone in small amounts of water with that type of mud out there, and they've gone in, relatively deep into the mud just from the impact, so that is a possibility.
And would make recovery difficult, I assume.
Very difficult.
In Tooele County, Sandy Reescraft, Fox 13 News, Utah.
The dead are identified as pilot 41-year-old John Cashmen, 51-year-old Mike Hurren, and his wife 45-year-old Gayle Hurren. Hurren was co-owner of Skydive Salt Lake. Other victims include 28-year-old Nathan Hall, 26-year-old Denise Stott, 31-year-old Charles Wilson, 25-year-old Merriah Hutson, 24-year-old Jay Johnson, and 34-year-old Lisa Ellis.
This tragedy is touching the lives of dozens of families along the Wasatch Front tonight. Relatives from Tooele to Riverton are mourning the loss of loved ones and wondering what went wrong. Fox 13's Scott McCain spoke with the family of Lisa Ellis tonight. He joins us now from News Control. Scott, how's this family doing?
Well, Hope, about as well as can be expected. Obviously, they're devastated by the loss of a loved one, yet some are taking comfort in the fact that Lisa, as well as all the others, died after doing what they loved, skydiving. In Lisa's case, she was a small woman with a huge passion for the sport and for life itself. And family members say her loss is also going to leave a huge void in all their lives. Those who knew her best say Lisa Ellis was a loving wife, an award-winning grade school teacher, and a passionate skydiver. This is home video of Lisa a few years ago, trying out her then brand new parachute rig. Her cousin and fellow skydiver Ken Smith says Lisa made more than 200 jumps and felt totally at home in the sky.
The people that are in the sport tend to be a very unique group of people. I mean, people that don't shy away from challenges, that seek out that adrenaline rush, whatever they do, be it extreme skiing or skydiving.
Ironically, skydiving was one of the few things Lisa didn't do with her husband Brett. Smith says the big guy was scared of small planes, but supported Lisa's love of the air. Lisa touched a lot of people in her short life, and her family hopes those people will take some comfort in the fact that Lisa and all the others died just hours after doing something they truly loved.
You search the world over, and anybody who's ever come in contact with Lisa was left with a lasting impression. She is someone who touched your heart, and that's rare, the people that have the ability to do that. And everybody felt that. Her students at school, certainly her husband, and their 2 kids. She was truly a unique and special person. She left a void that no one else can step in and fill that.
Hope a lot of people feeling very similar feelings of loss tonight. As we mentioned earlier, Lisa Ellis leaves behind a husband and 2 children, along with 10 brothers and sisters of her own. So obviously a lot of people feeling that loss tonight. And that's what's going on with 8 other families tonight here in Utah. Hope.
And Scott, I understand Lisa's family wants to reiterate, they want to make sure everybody knows this was not a skydiving accident.
Out of all this, Ken Smith says he doesn't want the sport of skydiving to get any kind of a black eye. He said Lisa and all the others, it meant far too much to them, and they would not want, out of all this tragedy, for their sport in any way to be besmirched by what happened. It was a plane accident, and they want to make sure everyone knows that. Hope.
It's just tragic. Scott, thanks.
Relatives remember the lives of victims of a fatal plane crash in the Great Salt Lake. Good evening. Our top story tonight. 9 families are grieving for loved ones killed in a plane crash at the Great Salt Lake.
The twin-engine craft was returning from a weekend of skydiving when it crashed in bad weather last night. It happened here about 6 miles west of the county boat harbor and a half-mile from Interstate 80. The plane was attempting to land at the Tooele Valley Airport. News 4 Utah's David Northfield joins us now live from the shores of the Great Salt Lake. David?
All 9 bodies have been recovered from the crash, but the wreckage of the plane is still submerged under the murky waters of the Great Salt Lake. Now, tomorrow morning, a barge with a crane on it will leave from the north shore of the lake to make its way across to the crash site to try and recover some of that wreckage. It was a routine flight coming back from Mesquite on Sunday afternoon, but just a few miles from home, something went very wrong. By daybreak, all 9 bodies had been recovered. The searchers charged with finding the victims said they knew they had to do their job, but it was a struggle.
It's sure an awful thing. That's a lot of people in a real fast time period to have to die that way.
Then crews from Salt Lake and Tooele counties began to locate the grim reminders of a trip built around exhilarating fun. Parachutes, the sleeping bags and duffel bags the 9 close friends used for their weekend of skydiving. From the air, a wheel from the airplane bobbed up and down in the shallow water. Nearby, you can barely make out the colored pieces of fuselage. All 9 victims came from the group Skydive Salt Lake, based in this trailer. The airport's manager fueled the plane on Friday and says he respects and likes everyone there.
And they flew all the time. There was no inexperience involved. I think the weather had a lot to do with it.
Now loved ones are left to come to terms with the cruel irony that people who jumped out of planes for fun didn't have a chance to get out on what proved to be their last flight. Now, radar tape showed the plane was banking and may have been in a spiral when it hit the water very hard. Officials from 2 federal agencies are here now trying to investigate the cause of the crash, but they're just getting started and we don't know very much yet. We hope to have more details for you on this tragedy tomorrow. Back to you.
All right. May help provide some closure for those families. Thank you.
The families and friends of the 9 people who died in that crash are mourning their loss tonight. Here are the names of the victims. The pilot was 41-year-old John Cashmen of Sandy, Lisa Ellis, a 3rd-grade teacher at Rosecrest Elementary, Mike Hurren and his wife Gayle. They own Skydive Salt Lake. They lived in Midvale. Salt Lake resident Nathan Hall was on that plane. The other victims were Denise Stott of Salt Lake, Charles Wilson, Merriah Hutson of Sandy, and Jay Johnson. All of these people were skydivers, and all of them were close friends. News 4 Utah's Nisha DeGehring has a glimpse for us tonight of the people who died in this plane crash. Nisha?
They were skydivers, but friends and family want you to know tonight these 9 people were much, much more. The community has lost a teacher, a software engineer, a wife, a son.
Just a nice kid. Was never any problem with anybody and always got along with everybody.
A pilot for 25 years, John Cashman's father says his son loved to spend his weekends flying skydivers.
They're not just skydivers, they're good people in the community. They do a lot of extra work in the community, do a lot of good things in the community.
Lisa Ellis was part of that close-knit skydiving clan. She was also a 3rd-grade teacher at Rosecrest Elementary.
And this is what she lived for, is educating these children. That was what her compassion was.
Ellis had been married 5 years.
She was my life, and she was my soul. And if you had the opportunity for Lisa Ellis to touch your life, then you're a better person for it today. I will miss her. God bless her.
2 more skydivers who will be sorely missed, Denise Stott and Nathan Hall, sweethearts since high school. They were planning to marry in August.
They were all friends, all of them. Been friends for years.
All friends, all with bright futures, all together on a fateful flight.
Just love your kids. That's about all.
Those are just 4 people who were on that plane. There are 5 more. The Hurrens, longtime owners of Skydive Salt Lake. Jay Johnson, he just got his degree and had spent the last 8 months traveling Europe. Skydive Salt Lake says tonight, our friends spanned an entire spectrum of careers and talents, but shared a common spirit of loving life and one another.
Be missed by a lot of people.
They will.
Thank you, Nisha.
back on the plane just for the convenience of returning home earlier. Many of us drove, and of course there was some equipment that had to be carried to make skydives. And
well, Stewart hopes to put together some type of special memorial for his lost friends in that crash. After the plane is finally recovered, it could still be more than a year before the NTSB determines a cause.
Well, teachers and parents are trying to help students of one crash victim cope with the tragedy. Lisa Ellis was a teacher at Rosecrest Elementary in Salt Lake County. This morning, Principal Dorta Gray talked to students about the tragedy.
They were all very visibly shaken, a lot of reminiscences, and a lot of why, and feeling robbed and cheated of the experience of having Lisa for the full year.
The students plan to compile all their memories of Lisa and give them to her husband, Brett. Principal Gray says that Lisa was the kind of teacher who could reach out to almost any child and help them learn.
Well, still a lot more ahead.
Who were returning from a trip in Mesquite, Nevada, Dick.
And one of the Sunday's plane crash victims was a 5th grade teacher here in Salt Lake City. Lisa Ellis had taught at Rosecrest Elementary School for 5 years. Outside her classroom is a picture of skydivers and a formation entitled Teamwork, a motto her students say she often used. Grief counselors were on hand today to guide teachers and students through this emotional situation. Principal Dorothea Gray says the students have been encouraged to talk about their feelings.
And it's not just a first-hour moment. It could be the student who is very calm at the first part, could be the one that falls apart a little bit later.
Her colleagues remember Ellis as a wonderful teacher with a gift for reaching her students.